Legal chaos.
Legal chaos.
Legal chaos.
Legal chaos.
Legal
Chaos. Legal
Chaos.
chaos.
It's legal chaos.
Is Trump's NIL order fixing chaos or creating more? Welcome back to episode 3. I'm your host, Tony Aboud, with my esteemed law partner and Greek friend, Nick Ganaris, and behind-the-scene man, board man, wing man, mic man, cameraman, as always, Brandon, the Destroyer. And I just made that last part up. Nick, all right, let's actually get to some debate today for a second. Is this executive order a real solution to NIL chaos, or is it just going to cause more legal problems? You're on the hot seat.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, thanks for the introduction. It's great to be back. It's great to be doing this again. We got a lot of great positive feedback. We want to keep going with it. You know, it seems like over the last week, 2 weeks, end of college basketball, NCAA tournament, we see a lot of NIL issues, especially in college basketball right now. Everybody's jumping in the portal, in and out of the portal. Last number I saw, something like 46% of college athletes are jumping into the portal, which is an amazing number.
46.
It's ridiculous. And, you know, some think they're going to go grab a lot of money, and some think that, you know, they think so, but they may be left holding the bag. And, you know, Tony, you bring up the executive order that Trump had, and I think that it's important before we begin. You know, I think everybody has identified that this is an issue and it needs to be addressed because NIL keeps going up. It keeps the rich are getting richer, and there's a lot more of the poor in college athletics. And a lot of people think that it might not be great for college athletics. And I think Trump also thinks that it might not be great for college athletics. So, you know, he issues this executive order, and he says, hey, we want to limit NIL deals. We want to make sure there's a fair market value. We want to restrict players transferring. We want to cap eligibility. And, you know, we've got all these things that we want to do. And, hey, if you don't do them, you ain't getting federal funds. And so –
Commerce cause.
Right, right. So I think, like, the idea that he has is something that's – it's great. I think a lot of people, when they first saw it, I remember on social media, everybody's like, yes, this is great. It's fixed. It's going to be fixed.
Not so fast.
Not so fast, my friend, because, you know, the issue here, before you go into what Trump has done and what could happen, you have to take a step back and you have to look back to the 2021 United States Supreme Court. There was a case that was United States v. Alston, A-L-S-T-O-N. And the United States Supreme Court, again, these are issues that have started to come up. You got kids that want to come over from Europe that have been drafted in the NBA. They want to play. Kids that want to be paid. And some people said, hey, we want to be paid, and we're not getting paid. And so the Supreme Court, all the way to the United States Supreme Court in 2021 said, you can't stop athlete compensation without having antitrust problems. So the Supreme Court says, yeah, you can pay these kids. They can be paid. So what Trump's order does, first of all, it's not a law. It's an executive order. But the problem with what Trump wants to do is it runs directly into this Alston decision. Because if you're now saying, oh, we're limiting funding, we're limiting compensation, we're limiting where you can go and how you can go and how long you can go, brings up a lot of issues that have been decided by Alston. So Does it provide more chaos? My position is it doesn't bring more chaos. What it does is it brings more attention to the issue.
Yeah.
And I think what he is doing and what his executive order is doing is shining more light on things. And it's somewhat of a wish list. Whether those things can be achieved is going to be, we're going to figure that out. Interestingly, after Alston, the Congress and the Senate, they've got this thing called the SCORE Act or SCORES Act, which has been in legislation, which addresses a lot of these issues. But like anything else in the Senate and the House, they can't get anything passed. And so there's a concern, we know that there's a concern. And so they put together the SCORE Act, which was supposed to fix college sports. It's supposed to address NIL, supposed to address transfers. It's supposed to address athlete pay, but it hasn't been passed.
And Nick, just for the audience, when you say it covers antitrust laws, that means rules that stop organizations from having too much power and being unfair, right? It's creating a fair market value, and that's what antitrust means.
Right.
Right. And who's got too much in order to create fair competition, right? And you talked about the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. You're not talking about the athletes. You're talking about the institutions.
Right.
So that's what it's trying to do. We have a capitalist society, right? But college sports shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't have one or two teams running the table. And that's kind of where we've turned this thing into. It's the NIL pay to play, which, I've said it before in our last segment, and I'll say it again. That's what it is. There's no consistency across the state. Now, why do you think the laws in the entire United States are universal with respect to the drinking age? Well, the courts, the federal government says we're going to use the Interstate Compact Act. We're going to use the 14th Amendment to say we're not going to provide you with federal funding unless you pass laws in your own state. So I don't think it's going to go in terms of this route, but trying to have a universal law where every state says we're going to do it our way because you got to separate the federal from the state government. The only way to do that is you have regulation. So I think Trump's order, I get it, it's a wish list.
Yeah.
But it brings everybody to the table. There's going to be some litigation on this.
It could be a lot.
And some states are going to say your order. It happens all the time, right? Trump issues executive orders and states are like, I don't think so. We'll file a lawsuit on this. We'll challenge this. There was one in the Supreme Court that dealt with immigration issue recently. I mean, his orders are always getting challenged. Mm-hmm. I think my point is, and what I was hoping for, is the one entity that governs college sport, and I'll say it again, is the NCAA. That's the one entity that can say, all right, let's all get together. Here's the cap. Here's the amount of transfers you get. We're not saying you can't pay athletes, but in order for every conference to be fair and competitive with everyone else, it shouldn't be, well, Ohio State's got the most money, they're going to get these athletes. Where there's a rumor that one athlete is going to another college, and that's why we've got these transfer issues. I mean, that's what antitrust laws are trying to prevent that from happening. I think it's a step in a great direction. You're right. I don't think it's causing more chaos, but it's bringing awareness. And what I'm hoping with some of these lawsuits that are happening and with Trump issuing this executive order with the Power 5 conferences getting together to saying, look, we got to change this somehow. Now, there's some conferences that probably don't want to change it, right? If you're on the top, why would you want to change it?
There you go, man. Well, there you go, and you said it. Now, what the problem is there's a lot of arguments on both sides.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned earlier, this is a free market. right? This is the United States. It's free market.
It's a bidding war, my man.
So Ohio State says, yep, free market. Duke, North Carolina, it's a free market. We're going to grab money. We're going to get great players. We're going to pay those players because Alston says we can pay these players.
Yeah.
Now we've got Trump coming and saying, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe we need to limit that amount of money. So isn't that contrary to fair market? And also, is what we want a fair level for all schools? What's going to happen there? Maybe, I would say to you, what might happen here, because if the SCORE Act passes, or there are these antitrust violations, what I think it might do is it might hasten the change in the NCAA as we know it now, meaning those schools with the haves say, you know what, we're going to go our own way. Big Ten, SEC, we're going to grab some other schools. We're going to go our own way and do our own thing.
Yeah.
We're leaving the NCAA. Maybe this hastens it. And now you can say all the other stuff, we're going to do what we're going to do over here. We're not part of the NCAA anymore. And now you've got other programs, other conferences, other schools that are saying, what about now?
Yeah.
And the big conferences say, well, you got your limits on how you want to do things, and you operate how you want to operate. We're going to operate how we're going to operate. So it's so maybe my initial statement about is it chaotic might not be, but the chaos might be coming.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because now we're going to have conflicts between the courts, the NCAA, and the federal powers, which are all involved now, right? We got state court, we got filings by universities against these players. You got the NCAA still trying to regulate, and you got the federal executive powers that are at stake. Before NIL, and I get the NCAA, they do a lot of things. They set up tournaments, they make sure individuals are eligible. But before NIL, part of what they were regulating is if players and investigating if players were getting paid.
Yeah.
That's a big part of their department.
Yeah.
Well, they're not doing that anymore. So colleges are like, why are we paying into this entity? What are you doing for us? And the majority are the schools that are not the Power 5 schools. Now, at the end of the day, a lot of, and we talk about executive orders, NCAA, things that are outside the scope of an 18 and 19-year-old kid. The reality of it, they don't really understand what they're signing. The reality of it, these kids are getting thrown so much money that they don't know what their contract obligations are, right? So, at the end of the day, how many people actually know what they're signing up for when they sign up for these NIL deals?
Yeah.
Do they have lawyers? Are their parents guiding them? Right? Do you know what when you sign up for when you get your first car loan or first house payment and you sit down with the closing and there's 25, 30 documents and you're just signing everything. Do you know what you're signing?
Right. You don't always, and but they're 18, they're adults, and they're listening to people, and they are, you hear people all the time say, well, I don't blame them. They're going to go grab their money. I don't blame them, and I get it. The question is, in the litigation is, can we limit it or we can't limit it? Can we limit movement or we can't limit movement? Can we do these types of things? Because it's a mess. It's a mess as it is when we just mentioned that nearly half the people in the NCAA, like 5,000 players, if you take away the ones that have graduated, the ones that might be walk-ons, you're talking close to half of the players that are in the portal. Why are they in the portal? They're not all going to get super rich.
Sure.
they may not end up anywhere.
But it's opportunity.
But it's the system we've created. And again, what the system for what? The system for college sports. And it wasn't long ago that we used to refer to them as student athletes, getting them a scholarship, going to school, doing those types of things. And now they are, and we talked about it on our last podcast, are they employees?
Yeah.
Are they independent contractors? Are they going to be employees of the school? Are they entering contracts? And then what's lost in all of this is the ability to get an education and plan for your future. And how, you know, they and how that's going to impact things. I can't see this. I can't see the current system in place not collapsing at some point in time.
Absolutely. You know, you mentioned an 18, 19, 20-some-year-old kid planning for their future, and you know, I think back when I was that age, you know, and I'm sure you've thought back at when you were that age and why you decided to go the path that you did, you know, to get into the career path. And not to change in gears, but we're talking about, you know, young men and young women that are in this position and going through the NIL process. Eventually, sports are going to end. I mean, most of them are not going to be professional athletes. So you're going to have to think about transitioning from NIL life to, you know, making life decisions and deciding what you want to do. Nick, what in transitioning from young Nick when you were a young student at Miami University and kind of putting yourself back and kind of being vulnerable a bit, you know, what prompted you? What was your deciding factor in kind of wanting to go to law school?
Oh boy.
To be a lawyer.
Oh boy. You know, it's like, and it's funny because you mentioned this at the beginning with the 18-year-olds and do they know what they're doing? I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. I went to Miami University. I was in the School of Business. I got to economics and accounting, and I realized real quick that I got to get out and I got to do something that I can understand. But I didn't think about going to law school. I wasn't thinking about it. My father was a lawyer and a longtime judge, but he never asked me, never put that in front of me.
Yeah.
And his experience and my experience with him as my father were not the influencing parts of it. You know, you get to the end of your college career, and it's like anything else. What's next? Right? You're like
exactly the transitioning.
You're looking at your watch. You're looking at the calendar, and you're like, man, I'm going to be out of here pretty quick.
Yeah.
And my college roommate at the time, Eddie Johnson from Carmel, Indiana. I love Eddie.
Yeah.
Eddie's like, hey, I'm going to go to law school. I took the LSAT. I'm going to law school. And for me, I'm like, hey, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. I got to go to school for 3 more years. Because I knew it wasn't going to be, you know, a master's in business. It wasn't going to be medical school. Yeah. And I had, you know, I was good at reading, writing, putting together, you know, thoughts. And that's got me into it. It was more of a, unfortunately, it wasn't like this great ideal in my mind that I'm going to go change the world. It was more like, I'm not ready for the real world. Let me go get some more school, and I think this law thing might be pretty cool. That's how I got into it, and that's I'd hate for my mom to know that, but that's ultimately what it was. But
that's your transition story.
That's my transition story. What's your transition story?
You know, I've got a little bit different of a take. You know, first generation for you know, son of an immigrant family and very proudful family of being able to, you know, send their kid to college. And to me, I was always terrible at math and science. So, you know, being an engineer or a doctor, that waved bye-bye a very long time ago. And I enjoyed, to me, and I don't know if it's the same now, but I felt back then that there was a sense of honor and pride of this legal profession, and I think it's changed, and we'll maybe talk about that down the road. But it was just a very prideful profession that always looked to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, wow, like you see these guys and you see them in the courtroom and you see how they look on TV and they're just helping people. And I've always thought, well, wow, that is something that I could see myself doing. So I knew going to college that, whether I would be successful at it or not, and that was a different thing. But I wanted to take the leap of faith, and my family they were immigrants of this country, and there was no legal background, so I was going in there with kind of a blank slate and what I've seen, and internet wasn't prevalent back then, but what you saw on movies and what you read in books, and to me there was a certain valor to it, and I thought to myself, well, this is what I want to do. So early on, as I'm going to college, I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I was able to. I was just knocking on doors. I'd approach lawyers and I'd send letters and I'd knock on their offices, and I said, "Look, I'm a college student. I don't know anything about your field. Can I follow you? Can I shadow you? Can I hold your briefcase? Can I be around it?" And I was able to do that. It just got me excited more to say, well, this is what I want to do. This is my passion. And I know it's different for you, and
It's completely different. You've got this honorable thing.
No.
I was
Well,
looking to keep going to school.
well,
I was having a good
I
time.
think part of that is, and I think you're downplaying. Your father was a. People still say the Ganaris name here, and I'm like, wow, that's Judge Ganaris. I'm like, actually, no, that's his son. But the valor of what he created, and I think you were just around it. You got to see it. I mean, you get to see the court. You get to see his peers. You were just around it. So maybe you didn't have that same valor because it was normal to you. You grew up in it. I didn't. I was looking outside, going at the window, going, I wish I had that toy, and I wanted it. And the more that I was getting closer to it, the more excited I was getting. I'm like, this is the field that I want to get into. And of course, you at college, and you take the LSAT, and you finally get in, and you start your first semester in law school, and you're thinking to yourself, what the heck am I doing here?
Yeah.
This is not fun. This isn't the fun stuff that I saw. So, but yeah, that's my different take on it. I mean, that's the way I felt.
Yeah.
And I still feel this way. And I still feel that the same, passion as I did, and I still enjoy getting up and putting on a suit and advocating, and I love what I'm doing. So,
Yeah. I think it's interesting that that's how you got there, and the way I got there.
completely different.
I assumed your father, because I've heard people mention your father. I assumed that you had been like bred from the time you were 8 or something to be a lawyer.
Brandon, I look at myself growing up, and I think that maybe my dad knew what he was doing. I would say I was a contrarian. If you wanted to advocate for one thing, I'd go the other direction. And so by not advocating for law, for not advocating about going in and following in his footsteps, may have influenced my decision to do that, as opposed to if he had pushed me towards that. I think I might have considered doing something else. Not because I disliked him. I loved him. I thought he was, the greatest man I ever knew. But that was just how I was then. I was a bit contrarian. I look at my kids now; they're the same way. And so I think that, it's a lot of people, Brandon, have said that. A lot of people have said, "Oh, you got into it because of your dad."
Yeah.
I think maybe I got into it despite my dad, because he didn't push me. So Yeah, I think that there's it's an interesting path. I can't be more thrilled about that I took this path.
Of course.
How I got here and how you got here.
Yeah.
Different paths, but I think the same love for what we do, right? I think that's clear, even though it wasn't the same way we got here.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, the reality of the glamour that I thought, and what people see on TV, and people mention this to me all the time, like, oh, I love the show Suits.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Well, I love, the show, Lincoln Lawyer, okay. What the reality of being a lawyer is not very well reflected sometimes on TV, is it, Nick?
It's not reflected at all. The idea, you got to get the facts, you got to get the background, and then you got to get the trial in all at the same time. And you're talking about trials next week.
How?
Yeah, it's not the way it is. It's completely different than that. But of course, that's why TV and movies and the like are so different. And in TV or on movies, everything's got a trial. There's a trial that they have, and I like to say that I'm a trial lawyer, but I feel a bit disingenuous sometimes when I say that anymore.
Why is that?
I say it because the way that the legal system that we operate in has changed quite a bit. Meaning, when I first started, trying cases was just a regular thing. You were trying cases every week, every month. You were trying multiple cases, whether it was in municipal court, whether they were felonies, federal court. You tried cases. And it seems like the way that our legal system, for a lot of different reasons, has developed is that we don't go to trial as much. Cases resolve a lot more now than they used to, and that's where it's. I still say I'm a trial lawyer,
Yeah.
but I feel like, I'm not trying as many cases as I used to.
Sure.
But that's just the reality, and that's the way I think things have changed. There's more resolutions.
You think part of that is volume, and what we do, obviously, we're criminal defense lawyers, traffic defense lawyers, and kind of all lump in one aspect. But as the population grows, and population of our community now is close to 500,000, you think that the more populated, the less time that the courts have to try to get everybody in there. That's why we have fewer trials, and there's more quote unquote deals to get resolved. And it's not like cases are getting dismissed, but when you weigh in the aspects of going to trial versus not going to trial, and it's a client's decision, but ultimately a lot of cases that settle, there's always a sweet deal, right? It's something that you can't pass up, and part of that is sheer volume.
It's sheer volume. It's not. And you're right. You're absolutely right when you say that. It's for better, for worse. Cases are getting resolved because of the sheer volume. And we talked a little bit last week about courts, municipal courts being court of the people. There was something that was interesting that happened that you mentioned to me. We do a lot of work in what are called area courts. And an area court in this particular jurisdiction, an area court was designed for misdemeanors, and if you
For the people.
for the people, and this particular jurisdiction has 3 area courts, and they've got them in different parts of the county.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the idea is that you go to the court that is closest to where you got the ticket,
Yeah.
where the incident occurred. And so one of the great things that you and I enjoy so much is going to the area court in Oxford, where
Yeah.
Miami University is, because you go down there, you take care of the court's great, the judge is great, the people that work there are great.
Yeah.
and then you maybe grab a little bit of lunch,
maybe a little bagel.
maybe a little bagel and deli, or you go to get some cheese fries or a gyro or something. But they move the court. They move the area court out of the area that it serves to streamline things. For who? For the benefit of the people? No, not for the benefit of the people. Now you have all the Miami University students. You have all the people in Oxford. You have all the people in Oxford Township that now have to go 25 minutes away for their convenience. I say that sarcastically.
Yeah. Sounds like a bank
But
moving.
again, that's the change that we're talking about, right? That court was set up, and now it's just en masse. We're sending people down there like cattle.
Yeah.
And so, could you be punished for going to trial? What if everybody wanted to go to trial?
Yeah.
What if everybody said, I'm going to trial? Yeah. Well, the system seems to be set up, do you think, to get resolutions?
Well, I mean, let's talk about this. So there's two types of trials, right? There's a bench trial and a jury trial. And for most, they want jury trials because it takes one person, an undecided person, to be a hung jury, and you have to have a unanimous decision. If it's a felony and 12-9 and misdemeanor, you have to have a unanimous decision, so your odds are higher. Right?
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
So if in jurors, they're members of the community. And for courts to have trials, they're shutting down the courts for a day or two. And then they're bringing in, 40 or 50 members of the community. Imagine you got a municipal court that's having 3 trials a week. It would be impossible to run their docket. The individuals that are in charge of bringing the juries would run out of juror members
Yeah.
just by mere mass of trying to get everybody together. So, I mean, I think that's one aspect as well. I think we're just growing, in population, and more filings are happening, and maybe not enough courts, maybe not enough judges. I don't know.
I think that's absolutely accurate. I've had judges, I know you have, we've had judges who have intimated to us, you go to trial and lose, you're going to jail.
Trial tax. They don't want to call it.
They don't want to call it a trial tax, but and so you have a conversation with your clients sometime. Look, I can't say that this is how this judge is going to do it, but I will tell you that it's been refreshing at times when there are judges who have said to us and singled us out and said, look, try your case. If you are found guilty, I'm going to treat it the same way as if you came in here and you pled guilty.
Yeah.
And that is refreshing.
That's refreshing.
And I wish that was more prevalent than it is. It's a lot of times with the staff. Oh, why are you having a trial? Why haven't you resolved the case?
They're annoyed.
They're annoyed.
Why?
Why are they annoyed with us, Tony? Why aren't they annoyed with the prosecutor? Why don't you
They're
say,
annoyed
Make a
because-
better deal.
Because they got to
dismiss the
sit
case.
there. They got to sit there.
Yeah. And the thing is, you and I are criminal defense attorneys. And when people say, what does that mean? I say that is what we are people that really, really love the Constitution. Everything that we do in every one of our cases touches on the Constitution.
Yes.
And there isn't anything more
Correct.
constitutional than exercising your right to a trial.
Sure. Every
Yeah,
aspect of it.
Every aspect.
Right to counsel. That's
Yes.
another one, right?
So let me say this. I want to explain something to some people. In the federal system, I don't want to get too into the weeds, but in the federal system, a lot of times a person's punishment, a person's sentence is going to be determined by what's called the federal sentencing guidelines. And what they do is they give you points for bad things, and they take away points for good things. And ultimately, they look at the number of points and they figure out what the penalty should be. But one of the things that they have is they will take away points for you to go into court
Oh, yeah.
and plead guilty. They call it, they'll give you 2 points off for accepting responsibility,
Yeah.
and then they also give you another point off
Being timely.
for doing it not the day before.
Yeah.
So the federal system and the way that the United States legislators have put this together is that they will tell you, and they're telling every person that goes into federal court, if you don't go to trial, we're going to make things better for you. If you go to trial and lose,
Yeah.
you don't get those points off. We're going to treat you differently than if you come and plead early and you get rid of this and you accept responsibility.
It's a built-in trial tax.
It is a built-in trial tax.
I feel like a lawyer and an engineer got together and created the sentencing guidelines.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far off topic, but yeah, I mean, things have changed. We don't go to trial as much.
Yeah.
And these are part of the reasons why. It doesn't mean that it's not a successful case. It doesn't mean that you haven't done good things for your client. But it's just different because I think it starts to take things off the table a little bit. And the other part where I think it takes it off the table is if prosecutors realize that system is slanted a little bit more towards them, and they're hey, we don't go to trial as much, so maybe we don't give in as much,
Yeah.
or
That's a good point.
negotiate the same way. So it has a big impact on the Constitution, have a big impact on your rights by not going to trial. Not going to trial and having fewer trials is not good. It just isn't.
So that's the reality.
That's it, man. That's the
So-
reality to it.
You know, when you talk about reality of being a lawyer, and you mentioned some things, and it's really not what we see on TV. You know, these things take time to learn, right? I mean, you've been doing this for 30 plus years. I'm in 20 plus years, you're a little bit older than I am. But these are all things that you don't learn in law school, right? I mean, what are some things can you think of, when you went, it's a long time ago, right?
Gosh.
When you went to law school.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's things that they prepare you for, but a lot of things they don't. What's some things in law school that didn't prepare you for?
I look back at my law school days, and you get out of law school, and you don't know how to be a lawyer.
Deer in a headlight.
Right. And it really isn't. It used to be, when I say used to be, this was before I was alive, but, there was an apprenticeship that lawyers had. You go back to the formation of our country, and you go back to old
Yeah,
English
yeah,
law.
Absolutely.
That-
They still do that in other countries.
They-
I think we're the only country that does not have an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what you have is you get out of law school, you throw your shingle up, and that's it. And we talk a little bit about, you don't know what you don't know. And if you do that, a lot of times you might be committing malpractice.
Yeah.
You get into cases that maybe you have no business getting into. But, as much as I do, you and I have had great mentors.
Yeah.
We've had great people that we have been able to follow and watch.
That's the key, though, isn't it?
Yeah, man.
You put yourself in a position to learn the law and to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because at a law school, I'm not sure what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to be a lawyer. I knew a couple things, right? One, of course, I wanted to be, a lawyer and litigant, and I wanted to be in the courtroom. Two, I wanted to kind of have my own brand.
You want to run your own show.
I wanted to run my own show for a lot of different reasons, and that kind of goes back to this being proud and what this meant to me, and some of the lawyers that I observed when I was in undergrad, when I was in college, I saw what they were doing, and I thought to myself, this is great, and it's exciting, and you're building a practice. Whether you start with one client and you get two clients and you're helping somebody.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what the size of the case was.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, because of my family immigrating, you know, to me at first I thought, well, hey, let me dabble in immigration law. Let me see if I want to do that. And I did that for a minute. And then I was in an office share, and you were in the same office share, and there's a lawyer there that did bankruptcies. And I said, well, let me help you let me see if I like it. Let me help you with a couple of meeting of the creditors in bankruptcy court. I learned pretty quick that was not what I wanted
Not
to
for
do.
you.
And then, did some civil stuff. But for me, ultimately, when I started doing criminal defense work, it just clicked. It felt like this is it. This is my calling. I enjoyed every minute of it, and then it took me a couple of years to realize, well, I can see myself doing that. So I stopped doing everything else.
Yeah.
When you first start, you were doing everything. Man,
Yeah, you had to.
did almost every type of law, and you had to figure that out. But to me, finding a niche is not going into law school and saying, I want to be a corporate lawyer, I want to be a patent lawyer, you just don't know.
Yeah.
You want to be a lawyer, your heart's in the right place. You want to understand and defend the Constitution. Well, that's the oath you're going to take with the Ohio Supreme Court, the Supreme Court, when you become a lawyer. Some graduate and immediately they need that job because you've got those student loans kicked in, and unfortunately you're going to get into maybe a career path for money because you've got those loans due, but then you may be stuck and not being able to see what else is out there. Unfortunately, that's kind of what our field is. But I think I'm looking back at how I started. It couldn't have worked out better, and you struggle for the first 5 years because, one, you're building out a practice.
Yeah.
And try to show the community, the individuals who want to hire you, that you're competent, but you're building it one step at a time.
Yep.
And to be able to build that and then find the niche that you have a passion for, to me was perfect for me.
I know why you like to be a criminal defense attorney.
Okay, well, tell me this theory because I haven't
I know
heard of it.
it.
Okay.
I know it because here it is. Okay. Here's why you like it.
Okay.
Despite the fact that you like Ohio State football,
Okay. Go
you root for the underdog.
Okay.
You are an underdog guy.
I am an underdog guy.
You are a guy that played football,
Yeah.
no offense, undersized.
Yeah.
You played a position that you were undersized.
Yeah.
And everything that you've done,
Oh, we're achieving.
you have been the underdog.
Yeah.
And you fight for the underdog. A criminal defense attorney,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
tell me a criminal defense attorney that isn't a fan of the underdog.
Yeah.
Okay? When you go to court and you go into the United States District Court and there's Tony Abood with his folder and he's got a great looking suit, but other than that, he looks over at the other table. There is the Assistant United States Attorney.
Yeah.
And sitting next to the Assistant United States Attorney is another Assistant United States Attorney. And sitting behind them are two paralegals. And sitting next to them are two federal agents. And they have at their fingertips the power and money and resources of the United States of America. And the same holds true when Tony is in court against the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
And they've got an office of 70 people or 100 people and the whole weight. And Tony is an underdog. That's what you do. And that's what you love. And that's what
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
We're underdogs.
You know, Nick, that gets my heart pumping.
I know it does.
That gets my heart pumping.
You're ready to run
And
through
let
a
me
wall.
tell you a story, okay? I'm not going to tell you who the prosecutor is, but you can probably figure it out. All right, this is probably 20 years ago. I'm going to go back 20 years ago. All right, young Tony.
Yeah.
Young Tony's trying to put his name out there, and I'm doing criminal defense work, right? So I'm in this courthouse, and it's not the county that we're in; it's the county east of us. Mm-hmm. All right, and there's a prosecutor that was very loud, and loud in a lot of ways where he didn't like going to trial, so he was really pushy on what he would do. And I remember there was a time they used to bring, and my client was in custody. They used to bring the in custody guys, and they used to sit him in the jury box. And we were at a moment as a final pretrial, and judge is up there, and he's like, "What are you guys going to do?" And I'm going back to my client. And I'm negotiating, right? As a client, I'm talking with the prosecutor. There's the offer. I go back to my client. He's like, "Well, hey, can you get him to knock it down 6 more months?" And I think I've got a deal. All right, I'm working the case. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go ask. I go back to the prosecutor and I said, "Hey, look, I think we're close. How about 6 more months?" And he looked at me, and he's like probably 10 feet away from my client. And he's looking at me and he's shouting. And I'll never forget this. And he's shouting these words like, "Well, if your client doesn't accept the deal that I'm going to give him, I'll just go back to the grand jury." So he's like yelling at my client.
Not good.
Not good. And that moment on was like, you're talking
It's
about
on.
the underdog story.
Yeah.
And I never felt so pumped and so alive where I'm sticking up for my client. And I said, "No, sir, you look at me directly. You got a problem. You talk to me with professional and decorum." And we just went at it. Now, of course, not hands and fists, but to the point is that you want to bully my client to take in a deal by talking to him directly.
Yeah.
And looking to the side of me saying, I'm gonna go back to the grand jury and indict him for 6 more charges if he doesn't take this deal.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's you're right. It's that competitiveness. It's the, wait a minute, you're trying to bully me. You're trying to bully my client because you want him to take your deal where we're really close and we're supposed to be professional and talk about it. After that day, I will tell you very proudly that never happened to me again.
Right.
And I don't, and I think to the point where I probably ended up getting maybe a little too aggressive. And I know there was moments that
Might have happened.
Yeah. So,
That might have happened.
but having that feeling and getting your heart is racing and you know, it's part of a challenge because you are the underdog. Mm-hmm. All the evidence a lot of times is overwhelming against your client, and you're trying to figure this puzzle out.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think you're right on that. I think you've read me correctly on that.
Well, it's not hard because I think most of us are underdog. We
Yeah.
fight for the underdogs all the time.
Nick, when you've had some background in the sense of your father being a judge and you were around lawyers and what have you, what shocked you the most when you started practicing? Because you didn't dive into it until you passed the bar, and then all of a sudden you're a lawyer. You had a better idea than I did, I think, because of your family background. Mm-hmm. But what shocked you the most? You graduated law school, young Nick, and you're like, here we go.
I mean, you know, I said it before. What shocked you the most is, you know, I'd say I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't even know that I didn't know what I was doing.
That's a good point.
I mean, I didn't even know, and so, you know, you go into a courtroom, And I remember one case, and one of the very first cases I had, and my client was charged with promoting prostitution. And that meant that he was a pimp. Okay? And he was charged, and the facts were that he had a limousine, or what we would call a limousine, but in fact, it didn't really look like a limousine. It was like a stretch Cadillac, and it was beat up.
Okay.
Don't get too excited. It wasn't like a real limousine. But
Yeah.
what would happen is in the back of the car would be a lady of the night, a prostitute,
Lady of the night.
and they would pick up a guy, and they would put the guy in the back of the car,
Okay.
and they would drive around.
Okay.
And my client would go to this place, which is no longer there. It's called Chicken Louie's.
I remember Chicken Louie's up
Mm-hmm.
on.
And my client would order a 2-piece meal. He'd park the car, and when he finished the meal, the date was over.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah.
And everybody got paid. Well, they arrested my guy, and they charged him with a felony of promoting prostitution. So
boy.
I think this is one of the first felony cases I ever had.
Okay.
You've got this thing. It's called a pretrial, and you go and you speak with the judge and you speak with the prosecutor. And so I looked at the statute real closely.
Yeah.
And it said promoting prostitution, and at the time it was defined as maintaining a brothel. And so, a brothel, where do I figure out what a brothel is? So
Yeah.
then I look, and there's a famous, everybody, with Webster's dictionary is what everybody uses. Lawyers use Black's Law Dictionary.
yeah. Yeah.
So I opened up Black's Law Dictionary, and I looked, and I found the definition for brothel, and it said house of ill repute. So, so I got my file, I got my Black's Law Dictionary, and I'm running over there, and the prosecutor's in there, and the judge is in there, and there's other lawyers in the judge's office, and we're talking about the case. And the judge says, "Okay, let's talk about your case." And I just jump into it, and I said, "You can't do this. It's a car is not a brothel. It's
Yeah.
defined as a brothel, and that's a house, and he's in a car. It's got 4 wheels, and the judge says, Nick, settle down. And so I look, and I could realize, and everybody's kind of looking, and some people are laughing and smirking. And the judge looked at me. When you say, "What didn't you know?" the judge looks at me and he says, "You will be waiving the jury in this case, I assume." I had no idea what that meant. But what he was telling me was, "You've got a winner,
Yeah.
and so you're going to waive the jury, and I'm going to find your guy not guilty."
Yeah.
And before I have a chance, the prosecutor says, "Hey, dummy, that means you got a winner, and here's what's going to happen." What's going to happen is I'm going to offer you a misdemeanor, and judge, what are you going to do? And the judge says, "I'm going to give him fine and court costs." And then
Yeah.
I said, "What about the limousine? Can we get the limousine back?" And he says, "I'll give you the limousine back too." But I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
I knew that I needed to work that case up, and I needed to figure that out, but I didn't know what happened then. I didn't know. And fortunately, when you and I were newer lawyers, there were a lot more judges and
Yeah.
actually prosecutors that would look out for us, look out for other lawyers, which is it's that has kind of lost its way as well, where other lawyers look out for lawyers, say, "Hey, wait a minute, you do this.
Yeah.
This is going to cause more problems for us. Let me help you with it." But this judge was looking out for me. The prosecutor was looking out for me, and it worked out for the client. But it's a way to learn. And when you said, "What didn't I know?" it was a big shock, which was how to be a lawyer and how to do what we do. And so that comes with time, that comes with experience, that comes with mentoring.
Yeah. And I've learned if lawyers say that they don't make mistakes or haven't made mistakes, they're being untruthful.
Right.
The biggest mistakes that I've made are the ones that I've learned the most about.
Yeah.
I will tell you that one of my first trials, again, we're going back 20 years.
Yep.
All right. So Ohio. So I had this great case, this great defense. And my defense was alibi.
Yeah, the alibi. I was somewhere else.
I wasn't there.
Right.
Right. Nick, I worked this thing. I had the witnesses lined up, I had the paper trail lined up. I mean, there's no media, there's no phones, but I had it lined up.
You had your alibi.
I had my alibi.
Yeah. What didn't you have?
Well, let me tell the story. So we start the trial, right?
Oh, no.
State presents their case, and then I'm getting ready to present my alibi.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecutor gets up. He goes, "Objection, Your Honor. The defense has not filed their notice of alibi."
Oh, gosh.
In the cold sweats, it's coming out of my body.
Because you knew it then.
The judge is looking at me.
Yeah.
He says, "Counsel, did you file your notice of alibi?"
Your client's there.
I looked at my client. He's looking at
Who knows?
me.
Your mom might be in the courtroom watching.
I said, "Your Honor, respectfully, may I get a short recess?" And you know what I did?
Yeah.
I called our mentors,
Yeah.
the guys that were in our practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I called them and I said, "I'm in trouble. I screwed up.
Yeah. Help me.
Help me." And they both came,
Dropped everything.
dropped everything. I believe they must have sprinted to the courthouse because we're across the street. And, I felt like a little kid, like I'm looking up going, "Help, what did I do?" He's like, "All right, just sit here." And this was, again, back in the old guard. They went in, they talked to the judge. The judge had an understanding, like, he's a young lawyer. Let's not punish him. Let's not punish a defendant. They talked for about 20 minutes, probably just to make me sweat. I bet they probably got it resolved in the first 5 minutes. He comes out, and I got my ears pinched a little bit, and he says, when the judge calls the case, you're going to stand up. You're going to respectfully ask for a continuance. I believe the judge is going to grant it. Then once the new trial's set, you're going to file your motion for alibi because that's what the statute says. I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Have you learned your lesson?" I said, "Yes, always read the statutes and any potential defenses that you're going to have."
Yeah.
It taught me to say, all right, just because you've worked it, you've got it all set up, you got to read the local statutes. You have to say, when do I need to notify? And it's changed now. I mean, self-defense claim, everything is changing.
Yeah, the
So
laws.
it's taught me to be meticulous about timing for everything. Don't get excited about what's in front of you. Make sure you got those details in.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget that. But I was lucky, and you talk about judges wanting to help. Prosecutor didn't want to help me that day. He knew he was going to stick it to. But I could have told me beforehand.
Yeah.
But so he wasn't trying to help me. But I know the judge was, and lawyers that were coming down. It was about helping young lawyers, and it was about not punishing a defendant too.
Yeah.
So
And right. And that was a great lesson, but it also taught you how you treat people too.
Yeah.
Right. And of
Yeah,
course
I could
we
see
want
you
to.
doing that for somebody, Tony. Leaving what you're doing and going to help somebody. I could see you doing
absolutely, absolutely.
I think that's part of it, and we've got this thing that as lawyers we are considered officers of the court, and certainly that prosecutor could have said, "Look,
Early on.
forget it. I got to win this case. I'm going to win this case."
Yeah.
Now he probably knew if I win the case, there's an issue on appeal. It's going to come back, ineffective assistance of counsel maybe, and that's going to be a problem for Tony. That's going to be a problem for me. Let's figure it out. And that's something that you and I we deal with all the time: fairness, treating people the right way. and prosecutors as well. You know, I had a situation where a prosecutor tried to fool me in telling me that, you know, does your client want to plead when they knew they couldn't move forward without a witness? And you correct them and you say, this is not how you do business.
Nope.
This is not how you do things.
Not at all.
So, you know, that's a great lesson, but it's also, you know, it reflects more on the legal community at the time, and it also reflects well on people doing the right thing. And ultimately, that's what law is treating people fairly, justly, and doing the right thing. And it worked out. It worked out for everybody there.
You know, I don't know if, and I think our profession has changed substantially for a lot of different reasons, right? I mean,
Yep.
I think that technology has changed the platform of how we obtain information. I remember, you know, when I started, in addition to law school, where you have to actually look up cases in books, but we had, you know, the Ohio Revised Code, and we had case law, these little green books that get updated. I mean, it was constantly reading books.
Yeah.
I don't know when the last time, I can't remember the last time I looked up a case law in a book. So that aspect has changed, but more importantly, I don't know if these younger lawyers understand or are able to put themselves in a position to have mentors, to be able to kind of learn how to practice law and how to talk to clients, because I think the cost of everything, right? Part of that is by the time you get out of law school, you're 7 years out and God knows how much in debt you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to law school because you think you're going to make a lot of money, then you're going for the wrong reasons.
Right.
You can get teacher salaries now that are probably the same amount as you know,
Some starting salaries.
Some starting salaries.
Yeah.
Whether it's for the government
Mm-hmm.
or you know, whether you're in private practice. So I think that's changed. I don't know. I don't know why it's changed, but you know, I think what I'm seeing now, at least from the cases that we handle, there's a lot of young lawyers that when we're trying cases or we're doing motions or when you're communicating with them, you can tell that there's nobody else, that they don't have anybody to fall back on. There's nobody to say, well, I had this situation, how do I handle it? Or if they do mess up, who do they go to? And a lot of who I'm speaking to, they're saying we don't have anybody.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what would you know? You went to law school decades ago. Would you recommend people going to law school now?
That is a great question. I think a lot of people answer it differently. I think, to me, in the way that I was raised and my personality, I think you kind of read me correctly on that. You got to have a passion for whatever you do. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're going to law school for reasons like you said for yourself, you're transitioning and you're trying to figure it out, I don't think going to law school is a transition school.
Not anymore, right?
It's not anymore. And I think because of the investment and the cost and the time, by the time you finish law school, that's 3 years. By the time you study for the bar, it's another 6 months. By the time you get your bar results, that's another 6 months. So 4 years undergrad, another 4 years of your time in life, and then to be able to say, all right, I'm a lawyer. I passed the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's going to take you another 5 years to become a lawyer.
To really,
Right.
To get into your craft, right?
Right.
That's what you mean.
Right. So that's 13 years of education. So if you should, do I suggest that you become a lawyer? Here's what I say. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I doing this because I have a passion? I see it. I've talked to people that are in it. I've done some internships, or I've seen how others act, and wow, I feel like this is my calling. And I know that may be an extreme statement, but don't go to law school because you think you're going to make a lot of money. Go to law school because you want to become a lawyer. You want to be a litigant. Don't go to law school if you just want to write contracts. You can do that without becoming a lawyer. Go do something else. I just think if you're going to put yourself and time and energy and all that education, then you better do it for the right reasons. Don't have to convince yourself. You're going to have to feel that this is your calling. And I know that's extreme, Nick, but that's the way I feel.
Well, let me go a little bit further, because the practice of law has changed. So it's not just the passion, but what about opportunities?
Oh yeah.
So how would that impact your advice to someone to say, hey, wait a minute, not just about the passion,
Yeah.
but the opportunities that law school might bring. And what I mean by that, and you can go into traditionally when you were coming out of law school,
Sure.
you mentioned it. You said, hey, I could do some immigration stuff. I could do some bankruptcy stuff. I could do some criminal defense stuff. I could maybe handle a divorce case. I
Yeah.
can handle a civil case. So
Right.
that
Yeah.
is maybe different now.
Yeah.
Whether it is, and you, I think, can speak on the that area, or even the corporate area or the bigger law firm area. I mean, what does that say? Well, does that influence the advice you give to someone about going to law school?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, there are more schools now. I mean, how many schools are there in Ohio? And I think for the most part, in fact, I was just telling somebody this, a young law student that that's in law school now, and I always tell them that I really don't think it matters where you go to law school. It's where you want to practice. So if for example, you ultimately see yourself practicing in Columbus, Ohio, right? Then you should probably want to go to a school in that area, whether it's
Yeah.
Capital or Ohio State. Because in reality, if you're going to, if you go to a school in Dayton, then you're going to have fewer opportunities because everyone in that area are probably alumni. I mean, people in our jurisdiction here in Dayton, a lot of them went to UD, and they end up staying in this area. So
Just like it would be anywhere else in the country.
just like anywhere else in the country. So I don't think you should look at it from the standpoint of where I go to school, but in terms of opportunities, if there's a place that you see yourself that you want to work, then you want to look at it. But there's the double-edged sword. Everybody wants to be big city. If you want to work Chicago, I don't know how many opportunities there are for you, and if there isn't, then you're stuck trying to either hang your shield out and go on your own, but then you decide to pivot. What do you do with the law degree where you're not in corporate? You want to push paper somewhere, and you're going to be miserable. I think what you and I have done and what you and I have created, many have tried, and there's some very successful small, self-employed law firms, that do what we do. But to try to do that now, I think is even more difficult than it was, 20 something years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw we have a lot of law schools. We have fewer lawyers, I think, that are going. And I think that there are fewer job opportunities in the areas. And I think that that is a trend. I think it's a trend where, we talk always about AI and how that's going to impact.
It's a good point.
If you're going to be a litigator, unless we get to the point where AI is handling trials, they're going to need litigators for a while.
Right.
But when you talk about transactional work, when you talk about contracts, when you talk about different things like that, there are fewer opportunities for people. The larger law firms have many of them. Some grow, but many of them have become smaller. They
can't generate income.
Right. And the way that they generate income has been it's a lot different. The idea, it wasn't uncommon even in a place like Dayton, Ohio, where you had law firms that were catering lunches every day. And the spending was off the hook because people were paying their bills. It's not that way anymore. But I think the one thing that law school does, that if you can think of it in a way that can translate into other areas, I think that the idea of at least the first couple years of law school to help you train your mind to think analytically and to utilize that as a tool, not just in the legal area, but if you can combine that with, maybe an MBA, or we knew a lot of people that, at least that I went to school with, that had mechanical or electrical engineering degrees that were getting law degrees. It helps that part of things. I think it's a great skill to have. Whether that translates into the legal market, as we would think more traditionally, I think there are areas that have shrunk. But I think that if you can figure out a way to use that law degree and the skills that it teaches you into other areas, then that can be helpful. But I see it. I see fewer lawyers coming into the community, fewer jobs available for them, and so that's something big that I've seen.
Let me put you on the spot here. So, the question that you asked me, should you become a lawyer? And I think, and I was speaking from the heart, I was speaking the truth. Ultimately, my opinion is probably not, unless you can justify in your mind that's the reason. Because I think because like you said, there are fewer opportunities, and you're almost looking at it from a different scope, that it could potentially open up other opportunities. So my suggestion is, I wouldn't recommend, unless you can justify it to yourself that this is what you want to do. What's your take? What are you advising young college students? Should they become lawyers?
I think that what you just said, if there's some sort of, I think you need to think, if you want to become a lawyer, I think before you go to law school, you need to think specifically about what area you want to get into, which can be difficult because you don't. That's
difficult.
It's difficult because you don't necessarily know.
Yeah.
But if there's a way that you can, for example, if I could create a perfect person, they would get out of college, they'd speak a language fluently. They'd speak Spanish, or they would speak Mandarin, or they would speak some other language fluently. They'd have a good background in English and business, and then they get a law degree that is combined with something else, with an MBA, with something that can open up more doors for them more internationally. That's a difficult thing.
Oh.
And
it's like 2%, man.
I get it. But the alternative is, and I'm going on what I know. And what I know is, when I got out of law school, I felt like there were a lot of opportunities. I could have had a lot of opportunities. I went out on my own.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to go as hard as I can. I'm going to do everything I can, because if I fall on my face and I fail, I felt that there were a lot of places that I could land.
That's a good point.
I don't know if there are many soft landings anymore. I don't know if those are available. I don't know, like, the law firms that used to bring in a whole bunch of associates, those are going
They're gone,
away.
especially in this area.
In this area.
A lot of areas.
A lot of areas.
I mean, you mentioned a lot of these larger firms that used to be able to bill. Now, the way that transactions were happening is that lawyers would dictate a letter. Their paralegals would transcribe it. They'd give it back to the lawyer to review it. They edit. That back and forth letter would cost a corporate client about $1,000.
Right, all that time.
Now, it's 2026. What does a lawyer do? Well, he drafts an email that took him 20 minutes that he could only bill $300 an hour. You're because of technology, it's made our practice, it's made lawyers more efficient. We don't have books anymore. You want to search, you go to Lexis or Westlaw, and they've made it even more efficient for you. They've got AI technology that they're able to even help you more. So before, you'd get a law clerk or a first year experienced lawyer and say, hey, go do research on this issue, find me these case laws, shepherdize it, make sure it's all valid, and write me a memo. Well, you don't need that anymore because you can just go to Lexis and their AI portals. And what they used to do before is there used to be a platform where they used to bill all the research. There was a lot of money back then, and there really isn't. So you're right, the work's gone down.
Yes.
So based upon that, you're speaking in a symposium? Are you telling them that they could spend should they invest 4 years and probably another $150,000 to $200,000?
I know. And the thing about it is, I do believe when I started law school, when I got out, even though I didn't know how to be a lawyer, I felt like that my mind was working differently. Analytically, I was able to examine things differently and look at them. And I believe, and that might be because of the experience that I've had over my legal career, but anymore, I can go into someplace, somebody hands me a contract. It's not what I do, but I know what I'm looking at. If we have so many areas that touch on law that I feel really comfortable. So I'm happy and I'm glad that I've got that experience. But is it worth the cost to do it? And that's
nowadays.
Nowadays,
not 30 years ago. Nick.
I know it's tough, man. It's.
I think it's tough.
I think that the and we're speaking from experience. And what we see and what we observe. And what I get concerned with are people who say, hey, I want to go into law. They don't have that. They don't see that. They may not see that the on-ramp that used to be there is now closed.
Yeah.
What about, how would you guys feel if we were to go back to an older way, which I guess it wasn't even that long ago, when as long as you passed the bar, you could be a lawyer. You didn't have to go to law school. I think for Ohio, that was sometime in the 80s, and I think some states still do that.
Wisconsin.
How would you feel about that?
Well, again, Brandon, the issue with that is, I mean, are you saying you get out of law school and you're a lawyer?
No, I'm saying and I think Virginia is another one. You don't have to go to law school. You don't have to have a JD. If you can pass the bar.
In that state. You're a lawyer in that state.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's a completely different conversation. I think, number one, I think law school is too long. I think it's a year too long. But I think that what I've just explained as far as the understanding analytically is something that most people just can't pick up a case book and read a case law and understand the basics of that without going to law school. Can I pass the bar if I've got a photographic memory?
Of course.
Yeah. But I think that there's training to it. So I don't like that idea. I think that that hurts the profession. I wouldn't hire somebody that just said, "Hey, I passed the bar and never went to law school." Hey, by the way, I did really well on my medical board, but I don't have all that other experience. I don't have, I don't want them as my doctor either.
Mike Ross would disagree with you. Watch Suits apparently.
Well, Mike Ross, that's why there was only one Mike Ross.
I don't want to go on the record and be responsible to tell everyone that they should go to law school and that it's warm and cheerful. I think, especially now, it's for whatever you do, you got to dig deep and make sure you're doing it for the right reason. And it's not, I would say, don't do it for financial opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do not do it for financial opportunity, and don't do it because you saw something and you want to be a corporate lawyer. Everybody's like, I want to be corporate. At one point I was in law school. I'm like, hey, you know what? Corporate law sounds great until it isn't.
Yeah.
So that's tough, Nick, and I'm glad that I've already gone through it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I would have done now if I'm in college now and it's 2026, my outlook could have been different just because of where everything's at. I think my passion would still be the same, but I don't know if I would have looked at the profession as I did, kind of in awe.
Yeah.
As I did before. So, that's my take.
I was just thinking back on this podcast. We talked a little bit about the Trump executive order.
Yeah.
We didn't really get into many other topics. We didn't really talk about a lot other than kind of our own personal thing. And I know that we could discuss these things. I'd love when people are watching or listening to this to be able to comment and say, hey, talk more about this.
Yeah.
Get it, hit more on these or not so much on these. I think any feedback would be great, so that we can make this, as engaging here. I think, what hopefully we can provide to people is some insight into what criminal defense attorneys do, what attorneys do, the way that we look at topics that are hitting, a national stage, whether it's Trump's NIL, whether it's the latest in the Karen Reed case or what have you. I think people are interested in those. And so I know we want to do those, but I'd really love to know what other people are thinking.
Yeah, it's a good point.
From the standpoint of what we're doing.
And just let me kind of tie in to kind of go back in full circle. We started the episode. We didn't get into a whole lot of legal topics as we normally do, but we talked about, NIL and the kind of the uncertainty. And you and I started talking about law school and law careers and kind of the uncertainty and kind of the overlining theme of if we have an overlining theme of this episode is that, people who are entering systems, a lot of times they don't really know what they're entering or really truly understand, and you're kind of learning through that process and going up and down through these pitfalls, similarly to the a lot of the NIL players, and the universities are still trying to figure that out, kind of what you and I both try to do. And we entered a system, we looked at it one way. Your transition was different than my transition. You got in it for a different reason than I did. And it took us a while to get to where we're at, but look at us now. We figured it out, and we're talking about legal chaos. And to me, that's exciting, and I hope it's inspiring and motivating for other young lawyers and other equal-minded individuals, that if you set your path out, even though the waters are muggy and you don't understand it, we all don't understand it, but if you continue with that path and strive forward and always do the right thing, you too could be on a podcast one day.
Great.
So
I'm at the pinnacle.
you're well. I don't know about the pinnacle, man. I think
I made it. I'm on a podcast.
You're on a podcast. You're on TV. You're going to be signing autographs at the local Starbucks. So ultimately, what I would like to see is trying to have some sense of what we do, but also in the same token, not to see a whole lot of regulation too. You want to see things organically happen for the right reasons, and a lot of times from our experience and what we do. And you mentioned this, I think, in our first podcast, and how the framers of the Constitution created these things, and then it was as society evolved, you had interpretation by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, case law.
And you had case law, and case law was based upon organic and natural occurrences that happen with real people.
Mm-hmm.
And when things happen, there's two adversary sides, and then it goes through the court system, and it goes to the Supreme Court, and poof, law is created. Not created behind some doors in legislation with legislators who don't really know what the reality of it is, but it's litigated and it's judged, and things are always changing. I think that's the whole point of what we do as careers. We mentioned NIL. Is Trump's order chaotic, or is it going to cause more chaos? I think what we do, and I think what it's going to do, it's going to raise awareness to the point where ultimately it's going to get changed, and it's going to get changed in the courtroom. It's going to get changed in the courtroom by lawyers, not lawyers like us, but it'll be lawyers that are going to litigate this thing. So I'm excited to see that, and I hope that's inspiring as well as we talk about the theme of this episode and kind of go through evolving, and you really don't know what's going to happen. And the NIL right now is the wild, wild west, and I don't think that's too late for the law to react, and hopefully it'll react in a positive way, and lawyers will make a difference. And I think ultimately it's going to be lawyers who are going to litigate this thing and hopefully have some positive impact to college sports, and hopefully we'll continue to call it college sports versus semi-sports.
Yeah.
So
good thing.
that's my take on that issue.
Yeah, I guess I would just close by saying this. To go back to your first question, is it chaos? I think it is a chaotic issue already. It's been a chaotic issue for the last handful of years, and it's going to be even more chaotic for a while. But hey, Trump's order talks about some great things. Whether they can effectuate those are going to be determined.
Yeah. Last few minutes here. It's your closing arguments. What off the top of your head? And I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
What are three things? What are three most important things that you want to see change? And it doesn't have to follow Trump's order, but now we talked about the system. What are three things that you want to see that could substantially impact the way we handle NIL and athletes?
So I think I come from the premise of I love college sports. I've loved college sports. I am getting to the point where I'm not loving college sports anymore. So I want that system. I would love a system in place that can maintain the integrity of college sports. The direction that we're going is eroding that integrity in my mind. And so what I would like to be able to see is a way that all participants, meaning schools, can continue on. Athletes can be paid. I don't hate movement of players. I think it's a bit ridiculous. Again, in my mind, we've got to remember that this is college. This is where they're supposed to be getting an education, and we're moving more towards professionalism in that.
Yeah.
I would like to have it come back more to, I don't know if it ever will, but you've asked me what I'd like to see, and so what I would say to you is, what I would like to see is it to come back more, so that we can continue with that college experience and why people love college sports. That's what it would be. What that looks like, man, that's complicated. I don't know if I got one or two or three things, but that's the overall thing that I like.
Well, would you agree that at a minimum, unless there are extenuating circumstances, that you give an athlete one transfer, maybe two if there's an issue with health or family, you just tell them one time. You get one. You go to college, you get a scholarship. You go there. That's your school. We'll give you one.
So let me say this.
Unless there's some exigent circumstances.
Well, yeah. Let me say that. Let me say this first. One thing that nobody has even mentioned, okay, in the way that it used to be mentioned, is you had to be in good academic standing at the school you were in to participate.
Yeah.
I haven't heard about anybody being ineligible anymore.
Oh, of course not.
So how are you able to be working towards a degree or going to school if you're transferring to 3-4 different places?
Yeah. You're not in class? How's that work? Is there an attendance? Like, how does that work?
I know. So that's one thing that is confusing to me. But again, we've got to make a decision. Is this going to be professional, or is this going to be college again?
Yeah. Amen to that.
All right.
That's a wrap.
Thanks.